Horry County Solid Waste Authority, February 23rd, 2016. Appreciate everybody being here. We're going to ask Mr. Campbell to do the invocation and Mr. Gray to do the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for the love and the blessings that you have heaped upon us, and continue to lead and guide us, and lead and guide us today in our decision-making process. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, we will need a motion to approve the agenda for tonight. A motion, a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Agenda is approved. The minutes of the last board meeting, January 26th, the regular meeting, that should say 2016 instead of 15. But if everybody's had a chance to read those minutes from the last meeting, January 26th, Chair will entertain a motion to accept those.
So moved.
So moved.
Motion to accept. Is that a second, Mr. Campbell?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We'll approve the minutes of January 26th. I don't think there was any request for public input, Ms. Murphy? Okay, thank you. We'll go straight into department reports, updates, recycling, corporate affairs.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My report begins on page 12. Just want to give you a brief update on a few items. Our caught green-handed recipient for the month of January was Mr. W.P. McLeod. He's a regular customer at the Sarvis Recycling Center. Mr. McLeod was very happy to have been selected, caught green-handed as he was recycling at that center, and was very pleased with his prize package. Our recycling center of the quarter, and this is the quarter ending December 31st, 2015, was the Carolina Forest Recycling Center. Pictured in your board packet is Mr. Ike Locklear. He's the full-time attendant there. Mr. Locklear's been with us for a while, and I think in the last board packet in the miscellaneous section, there was a letter that we received from a resident regarding the Carolina Forest Recycling Center, and specifically Mr. Locklear, who he said ran the facility as efficient as a drill sergeant, but he was very nice when he did so. So we're very pleased with Mr. Locklear in that center. My second or third, I'm losing track of reminding you about your statement of economic interest. The deadline for filing is March 30th, if you have not done so. And need assistance, please see Ms. Nanette Powell. She's more than happy to help you with that.
Might be March 15th. The due date, or drop dead date, might be March 15th. Okay. Instead of March 31.
So it may have changed.
Ma'am?
It may have changed.
That's okay.
Okay, well, that's good to know. The last update I want to give you is not in your packet. It's basically a few pictures from the first LEGO League trash trek. The robotics competition was held on February the 13th at Carolina Forest High School. At this portion of the first competition series is targeting elementary school and middle school students. And this is the east side of the state, so it's the eastern competition. They'll have the western competition next month. But they had 47 schools to participate, 7 representing Horry County. The state champion, as it turns out, is from Horry County for the East State, and it was Ocean Bay Middle School. They now have the opportunity to participate in the World Championship, which will be in April in St. Louis, Missouri. So it was a very interesting competition if you haven't been to one. The next one will be held, the high school branch of this competition will be held this week, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday at the Convention Center. And that will be the one that Conway High School will be participating in. They will be in competition on Friday and Saturday. So if you're not busy this week, you want to go check it out, I'm sure they'll be glad to see you. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Murphy. Operations and Planning, Mr. Hilling. Obviously, somebody's been doing a rain dance, so if we can figure out a rain go away dance, I'll help you do that.
We definitely need one of those.
Wow.
Definitely. Good evening to everybody.
It's been a challenge.
First off, our driver of the month for this month is Glenn Herman from Per Year Transportation. They pick up our recycled shingles out there. We did have a really good month of that during January, but he's been real cooperative, first in, first out with staff up here. Also, in this month's packet, if you scroll down just a little bit past his information, you'll see a collage of all the 2015 nominees that we had for Driver of the Month. So we also post this up at the Scale House, so not only do the Drivers of the Month get their picture up there for 30 days, but they also get to see it another 30 days with all the winners up there. So we put that up there. Piggyback expansion, since we did our last update a couple, 3 months ago, it's been pretty much the same hauling of structural fill. It's such a big area to haul out there and fill in, so we continue to do that. The liner and the geocomposite have been delivered. The contractor really wants to try to start either between Thursday of this week and Monday, starting to deploy some liner, weather permitting. And that's a big if right there, weather permitting. We've talked about the rain in the past where we had the 50 inches of rain, and that's really put a hurt on them. They've got 40 adverse weather days, so substantial date is now September 19th of this year. As of the first of the month, there's been no indication of any kind of change order to come. Good shape out there. So if anything was to come, we'll let y'all know right away on that. Our C&D recycling, staff over there continues to do really good. For the first 6 months of this fiscal year, we've averaged 1,289 tons going through there. The first year, we were actually somewhere about 900 is all we were doing. So we've brought that up well over 300 tons a month. And if the longer you go, it's harder to pull that average up. So they're doing really good, and also they're averaging almost 70% of what goes through there is being recycled. So our numbers continue to get better. You can see through December, we've saved what we approximate 273 days since we started the program out there. So that's the C&D airspace. So we're anxiously and continually to push till we get to that 1 year so we can come in here and report to y'all we've saved a year of airspace. And just under safety, Ms. Creech has mentioned a couple months about some of the emails she gets from SWANA. And so I wanted to share a couple of those. They're in the board packet. We do present those to our staff over there when we do our monthly safety meetings. And so there was a couple in this month. Staying alert at work, talked about getting, drinking plenty of fluids, getting plenty of rest at night, and then the old 6-second rule out there. So we do share those with staff during our monthly safety meetings. Some of the stuff that comes in is really not pertinent to what we do here on the landfill, but even some of them are just good reminders. If you're out there, even for the board, keep your 6-second rule out there. If it's raining, drop another second, make it 7. Keep you from plowing into somebody out there. So anyway, just want to let the board know that, we do get those and we share them with the staff during our meetings there.
Great.
Any questions?
Yes, Ms. Creek?
I'll say again, like I did in the finance, y'all are doing an excellent job to recycle 70-some% of what you get. You're doing way above what anyone I know, and twice and 3 times what a lot of other are doing. And I appreciate that, and saving the airspace, because that means a lot to me. The other thing is, I know that we've had a lot of water. And I know that we've had to have problems with all of that, and I'm sure that you and Vance Moore and everybody's keeping a good eye on that out there. But if they need a few more days, and I'm sure they want to get their job done, get paid, and go home, there's no doubt. But if you think at any time that we need to dry out more, or we don't need to have pockets of water and things that they're doing, I'm more than willing for them to have more days to finish what they're doing so that it's done 100% correctly.
Okay? The contractor we have, and Miles Golden is the supervisor, he really, if you want to say, he errs on the side of safety. If it's just a little sprinkle, he'll shut down.
Yeah.
So he's been really good. He hadn't taken any chances on that. He would still like to get ahead of this date, but
Yeah.
as far as record keeping, but yeah, I can assure you, he is not getting in any hurry with the rain, and we'll make sure that we
Okay.
stay on target
But
there.
because I'm willing to allot him more days if that's what he needs. I don't think he should worry about that. We've just had a phenomenal amount of water, and it takes a long time for something like that to dry out. And so we just need, I appreciate it if you would be extra careful in
Thank you.
doing that.
And thank you for, feeling that way about it, so it does go good, and nobody feels like, they're just under the gun to beat that date.
Yeah, they're not.
Appreciate it.
Good. Thanks, Mr. Hilling. Ms. Bidding?
Good evening.
Hello.
The financial reports begin on page 35. Just want to point out a few things. Of course, we are 7 months through the year, and we should be at around 58.31% of budget. Just wanted to kind of take a look in the middle right there under the revenues, under the tipping fees. As you can see, we have a 9.26%, I'm going to get it out in a minute, percent increase in our tipping fees over last year. So just want to kind of point that out because we are running a little bit ahead in our revenue and our tipping fees as compared to last year, which I think is a positive thing to kind of point out. As you can see, the breakdown in the middle of the page, our solid waste is at 64.49% of budget. Our mixed construction is at 64.41% of budget. Both of those above where we should be at the 58.31%. And our yard waste is just a little bit below budget at 52.72% of budget. Down at the bottom of the page, I always like to point out to you the airspace savings. As you can see, the C&D processing facility has saved 36.77 days of airspace so far this year. The new line item that I added this month, of course, was the C&D material that we are taking out, the rejects that we're taking out from the C&D processing facility. They're going to Marion County. To date, we've saved a little over 5 days of airspace from those rejects leaving. And then, of course, the MRF and the collection and hauling recycling has saved 39.95 days of airspace. I'm going to turn over to page 37. This is our income statement. Just like to take a look. As you can see, our revenue total is at 58.58% of budget. So it's staying just a little bit above budget. And our expenses are at 56.5% of budget, so they are remaining a little bit below. The only problem I see there is our gap is starting to close a little bit, so we are continuing to watch that so we can watch our expenses. As you can see, month to date, revenues were below expenses by $69,756. But year to date, we are still running in the black at $428,730.95. Just a reminder, and I think I mentioned this also last month, in our budget, we had budgeted, a transfer from designated to offset that revenue deficit. To date, we have not done a transfer. So I think the fact that we are continuing to run in the black and not having had to do that transfer to date is pretty good. Like I said, everybody's watching their expenses and watching their costs. Wanted to also point out over on page, get there in a minute. Page 41. Just kind of want to take a look and see where our tonnages are year to date. As I start to prepare, some revenue figures for next year, I try to kind of look at, where we are currently, where we were last year this time. And as you can see, our solid waste and our mixed construction tonnages are running a little bit above where they were last year this time. So we are seeing an increase, of course, in our solid waste and mixed construction, of course, due to a slight increase in the economy. So those are some of the things I'll be taking a look at as I start to prepare our revenue figures for the budget.
Dan,
Yes, sir.
the other?
The other is a little bit of everything. It may be some contaminated shingle debris. It may be, we have special waste sometimes. It's a little conglomeration of a little bit of everything. Sometimes there's, I'm trying to think of any other material that we might get in that doesn't fall into one of these categories. And that's why that's so high, 'cause I think we normally get like some special waste that, normally Stephanie Todd, somebody has to handle in a special form or fashion, so we charge it at a different rate and it falls into that category. Over on page 51, I was going to get into our update on our MRF. I'm going to go over these briefly with you. I know everybody, like I said, either maybe has heard it this morning at INR or at our Finance and Administration meeting. Looking at our January figures, we've got month-to-date, and then we have year-to-date on this sheet. Month-to-date, what I'd like to kind of point out to you is the bales at the end of the month. We only had 358 bales in inventory at the end of January. Last month, we had about 867 bales. So as you can see, we have been able to get out a lot of the material that was in inventory at the end of December. We were able to get it out during the month of January. However, if you kind of take a look at the tonnage sold, we sold a little over 3,000 tons this month, which is down from last month. Last month, we sold a little over 3,100 tons. So you can see that the tonnage is down a little bit. We're also seeing that still in the month of February. And really a lot of that is our local tonnage. It's not the Charleston tonnage. We're seeing a drop-off in our local tonnage, and that has to do, of course, a lot with the different businesses and restaurants and stuff that close this time of year, and they won't be gearing up again until the spring. So we normally do see a little bit of a drop-off during this time of year. So it is somewhat expected. The average price, as you can see, is $118.51. As compared to last month, it was $113.12. So we did see a slight increase in our average price per ton that we did receive. So the total revenue that we received from the material that we sold for the month of January was $357,983.16. As we go on down to the middle of the page where I've got the incoming tonnage, you can see the incoming tonnage during the month of January was a little over 4,300 tons. Last month, we had a little over 5,000 tons. So that's why I said you can see that we have seen a drop-off, of course, in the tonnage that we've gotten in. Our reject rate, as you can see, is 16.74% at the end of January. That's dropped drastically from last month. Last month, it was 21.56%. So that has a lot to do, of course, with also the tonnage that we've sent out to Charleston. You know, we started that back in January, transporting a lot of those rejects back out to Charleston, and we sent 232.08 tons back to Charleston during the month of January. And of course, you should see even more of that in February, because we were just getting geared up in January. So as you can see, we had 726.99 tons that went into the landfill this month. And like I said, you'll see that drop, of course. Further on down, you'll see the total revenue due from Charleston of $45,183.31. That's made up, of course, from that cost share that we have in place with Charleston, where the base market value, if it falls below the $135 a ton, they'll pay us the difference back on the tonnage. And of course, it did fall down to $118.51. So that's what the cost share is. The reject disposal has to do with anything over that 14.5%. So anything, because they were at 16.74%, there's a cost that they owe us for that, as well as the reject pulls. And that has to do with the additional pulls that are necessary because of the rejects being over the 14.5%. So our total revenue for the month of January is $403,166.47. And our expenses are $336,693. So we did see a profit of around $66,473 for the month of January. Year-to-date, we still are running in a slight deficit of $7,158. Like I said, we continue to hope to make moves in the right direction. Like I said, we are hoping to continue to, get that deficit caught up, of course. Any questions on this page?
Yes.
Yes, sir, Mr. Gray.
What, on that page only?
No, sir, any page that I've covered, yes, sir.
At one time, correct me if my memory is wrong, you were showing on like page 35,
Yes, sir, down at the bottom of page 35.
yeah, you were showing the collections and hauling division expense.
Yes, sir. Down there at the very bottom, that very last line where it says materials and recycling facility and collection and hauling, that revenue figure that we have is for both the materials recycling facility and collection and hauling revenue, and the expenses are for both as well.
Yeah, so you aggregated collection and hauling with other expenses.
With the MRF expenses. The MRF expenses and the collection and hauling expenses come to the $3,263,103.73 that you see there. That's for both of those departments.
Okay, well, we changed things, and I think for the better, matching revenues with expenses. We now include on a regular basis collection and hauling.
Yes, sir. That's been on the bottom of this sheet for, well, ever since you asked me to add it to it. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
That's good accounting.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Campbell.
how often do you invoice Charleston County monthly,
Yes, sir.
and they respond fairly quick, or is it just,
We did get our first check from them, I think, last week. And that took a little bit of time because there was some changes we had to make in the reports back and forth, some things that we saw that we needed to change the way we were doing it, some of the things they saw. So we did finally get our first check. We're all caught up, and now the only thing they owe us is for what we billed them for the month of January. But yes, sir, they've been very good to work with us and pay us promptly.
Ms. Bidding, I want to thank you and the staff for all the hard work on this and staying on top of not only the reporting and numbers, but also the operation and management. Obviously, there was a concern about the deficit, and we're moving in the right direction, even though there's still a small deficit, but certainly closing that gap. And the INR committee this morning was very complimentary of the work that the staff had done, and I appreciate that. And it, as everybody mentioned, you know, keeping these materials out of the landfill and helping Charleston out, and if we do end up with additional revenues and making money, great. If we break even, then that's still okay too, as long as we're not going into the hole. So I think you know, everybody's worked well together, and I appreciate all the hard work and efforts in that regard.
Thank you, thank you. I did want to mention too, and I mentioned at the INR meeting this morning, I think we had brought it to your attention last month about ordering a belt for over at the MRF. It is the major in-feed belt that feeds into our system over there that is going to be replaced this weekend. They're going to start on that Friday. This belt costs around $25,000. Of course, it's one that has to be special ordered and special manufactured. So, you know, due to the staff looking at that and maintaining the equipment like they are, they were able to see that that was in need of being replaced and did so before the equipment actually was shut down, because if had it shut down, it would have been, you know, 2 to 3 weeks we would have been down. So we're staying ahead of the game. They're definitely doing a wonderful job on the maintenance and repairs at the MRF. So they will be closed on Friday or shut down on Friday to start the replacement of that belt, because it's about a 2 to 3 day process.
Mr. Campbell?
that's just a normal maintenance process, so this is.
Yes, sir.
This is not anything that's jumped out at us. This is
No,
just a-
sir. And this is a belt that we had on the system when we first started the system 8 years ago. So this is the first time we've replaced it. So we anticipate, of course, it lasting another 8 years, 8 to 10 years, hopefully.
Mr. Gray?
Are we gonna charge that, you know, in the same months that we do it, or do we amortize it, you know, depreciate it over time?
That is a belt that we will actually add to our equipment replacement fund that we will start amortizing starting next year. Yes, sir. It's because of it being such a large purchase. We haven't done so in the past with a lot of those belts, but because this is one particular one, we will start adding that to that. And it will be, like I said, we will put it in our system to be spread out over a number of years.
Thank you.
But the price of this one will hit this month's expenses.
Right, but we had agreed, the board had approved for us to take that money from that MRF contingency fund. So luckily, we had the money set aside in that contingency fund to cover the cost of this belt.
I'm confused. Are we gonna expense it this month, or?
We'll be expensing the belt we currently are purchasing, yes, sir, this month out of contingency funds. But then we'll add it, so we'll be putting money aside from maybe the next 4 or 5 years or whatever to replace it in the future. So therefore, we won't have to worry about having to come up with $25,000 8 years from now to replace it.
Well, I get that, we're gonna be responsible for it, but when you do this report next month, will it have a $25,000 hit due to that bill?
Yes, sir, it will.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, the next item I have for you is just an update on the financial assurance. I presented this to you back in December, but at the time, we did not have the Horry County's CAFR that we needed to have their revenue figure to complete this. Of course, I've been in contact with DHEC, and they were well aware of our delay in getting this reported. So anyway, I just wanted to update that with you. We've got the completed figure. On page 60 is where I have taken and plugged in, of course, our local government financial test, where our costs have to be 43% less than our revenue. And as you can see, we clearly meet the test. So I will now be taking all of this information and sending it to DHEC tomorrow. So I just wanted to update you on the financial assurance. The last thing I have for you is a transfer policy. We have that unrestricted transfer policy that we take a look at each quarter. According to the policy, we are to maintain 15% of estimated annual revenues. In the past, if we've had excess money over that 15%, we were able to transfer it to some of our designated accounts or maintain some of that money in our unrestricted funds so that staff was able to make some of the purchases that we don't take from any of these designated funds. For instance, in our capital budget, if we had something in there for a light tower or a pump that we don't have in our equipment replacement or doesn't come from a designated fund, we'd make a purchase from these unrestricted funds by this transfer. In the same token, if it falls below the 15% and we're at a deficit, according to the policy, we're supposed to come up with a plan to be able to put that money back. Of course, through end of December, we were at a deficit of $226,183. What I'm recommending is that we take that money out of the the designated fund for construction and development, and put it back into our operating so that we will maintain that policy and maintain the 15% revenue balance that we need to have in there according to this policy. And I just need the board's approval to do so.
Got a recommendation from staff on this transfer of funds. We have a motion.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yes, I understand that it's something that we're required to do, and we're operating in very difficult times.
Yes, sir.
Our charges per ton are much lower than market, and our revenue at MRF is related to poor market conditions. I get fully why you're doing what you're doing. I just think that, at an earlier time, we paid an engineering firm $11,000 or something like that to take a look at our contingency restricted funds. And his report was that we were short by several $1 million. There's nothing we can do about market conditions. I know that our staff is working hard and making changes, personnel changes. But I think that we just need to be aware, and I'm sure we are, that we're going in the wrong direction right now. And we just need to continue to work. We've been putting excess money aside. Now we've got to take some of that out and put it into the operating statement.
Yes, sir. And that's
Got
one of
that
the,
right?
definitely one of the items we'll take a look at on Thursday to discuss at our pre-budget workshop. Because you're exactly right. We are not necessarily moving in the right direction.
Thank you for giving us a shot of realism, a glass of cold water, or whatever. But that's our job.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? We have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation on the transfer. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Mr. Bestant's not here this evening, so I'm going to jump in and do his part real quick. Just an update on the incentives. Year to date, we've given $149,560 in incentives. Remaining in the budget, we have a little over $108,000. We're down a little bit this month, from last month by about $2,000 in the incentives. Last month, we gave out around $19,000 in incentives, and this month about $17,000. So, we do anticipate being just fine, through the remainder of the year. We should have enough in our budget to cover the incentives for the remainder of the year. I have just two quick other items. Ms. Powell wanted me to mention to you that the health screening is on March 15th. For anybody that's interested in coming and participating in the health screening, that's always fun. Tell you how good and healthy you are, or not.
March 15th?
Yes, sir, March 15th.
And is there appointments or a time, just show up, or?
You can contact Ms. Powell to set up an appointment.
Okay.
Only other thing I have is I had just gotten notification from the county. You know, we started the P-card system a little over a year ago, and part of our reason for doing this was, of course, to streamline our system, but also they offer a rebate. And so we just got a rebate of a little over $21,000 for our P-card system. So we're kind of pleased with that. It's a way to pay our bills, and we're getting money back for it. So staff has done a great job utilizing this program, and, you know, any extra revenue we can get, we're pleased to get, that's for sure.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Knight?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I really don't have anything listed, but I'd just like to thank staff for the job that they're doing. And it's tough when money is tight, and it is. And we'll be talking about that Thursday. And I just appreciate the board's support on these things. And I think the MRF is going as good as we can make it go. Mike's there tonight. They're getting ready to do some belt work, and we look at it every way that if it's slow, we send contract workers home to watch the bottom line that way. So I just appreciate y'all's support.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Knight.
Mr. Knight, didn't you have the manufacturing rep in here to go over it again last week? And didn't he have some good things to say about it?
Yeah, CP was here. They're out of San Diego. They, the manufacturers of our equipment, and there's about 5 companies that does that across the world. And actually, they were visiting Charleston, and they came up to look at our operation again to see if they could find anything that we could do in a better way to get more equipment through the system. And Rich and the guys up there did learn some stuff about the equipment that they didn't know. So it was beneficial, and it was no cost to us. And it's always good to see a representative from the company that manufactures stuff, because that's a chance to get on their toes if there's something that's not going right. We created out a bunch of chains up last week on the maintenance, and the stuff that runs those belts is a big bicycle chain, a real big bicycle chain. And you that grew up with bicycles know that they'd wear out, and you'd have to take links out and all that type of stuff. So they were here, and we appreciate them coming, and they said good things about it.
Very good. Thank you. Before we go into the committee reports, Ms. Britton's not here, and I know everybody's aware that her father-in-law, Mr. Clay Britton, passed away last week, and I just wanted to mention that please keep the entire Britton family in your thoughts and prayers, and as they're going through this difficult time. But it was a sad situation last week, and I know she appreciates all the support from all the board and staff and everybody from the family out here. So, okay, committee reports. We've got the diversion committee that met February 16th.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
It was good to see Mark Danzas from Waste Zero again. The diversion committee that went up there last year was Reverend Coakley and Mike Campbell and myself, and we spent 3 good days with him in Massachusetts learning about the bag business, which is an entirely different program than ours because recycling is mandatory up there, and it makes it very easy to create certain things when they have to do it by law. We don't have that here yet. But he made a presentation to the committee, to the Version Committee, about a new program he's come up with, and it has some interest. He would like to do a pilot program concerning the bags with one of the smaller cities in Horry County. And after hearing his presentation and discussion by the committee members, our recommendation to the full board was to advise staff to continue to pursue this and meet with him and discuss it and see if it's feasible for us to use. Mr. Campbell, Ms. Creech, you have any comments about the committee?
The one thought that I have is that we were talking about the pilot program, of course, there's gonna be some expense to it, but they said that they would be willing to participate in part of it. And once we came up with some type of program, and I think, Danny, you guys are meeting with them next couple, 2 or 3 weeks, and
Yeah, we've already contacted them. We'll be meeting with them March the 9th up at our MRF to where, 2 of the guys that were here is in the manufacturing business. And they've got some ideas now about, putting in short lines to encourage people to use bags of different colors to put different things in. So, they're gonna meet with us, and we'll listen to them to see what we would really have to do for the pilot program and how it will affect us, but we've already got that set up for March the 9th.
Now, I looked through the presentation. Those bags are made up of what? Made out of what?
Well, he has different bags made out of different things for different purposes. Their first goal is that they don't break. Their second goal is that they are biodegradable, they will go away. It's to give you a basic understanding of how they work, and it works so well when we saw them. We followed his garbage trucks and looked at everything. Basically, they have a 2-bag system up there. It's a green bag and a blue bag. And the green bag is for your waste, and you are charged by that. You go to the store, you buy this bag, and you are charged for that bag, and you're charged to pick up that bag. The blue bag is for your recyclables, and you are not charged for that. So there's your incentive for people to recycle. By law, they have to recycle, but nobody goes in those bags. But if you have one bag that's free and one bag that costs you, it's pretty simple to figure out which bag is going to be the fullest. So that's the theory they work on. They've changed that program here and are trying to do an incentive thing because the attitude towards recycling has changed, especially in the South compared to what it is in Massachusetts and New England up there.
Well, I know the plastic bags are the evil product over at the MRF, and they gum things up and all, so.
Right. These are more like the bags the cities used to use.
They're bigger, and their theory is not just have 2 bags.
Right.
Have 5, 6, 7. You could have a white glass and a red bag. And then you've got this short line that everybody's looking at, and I think they're trying to get out in front of the dirty MRFs, who's falling on hard times because it's all mixed up. And this theory is it's cleaner because it's separated, and then you got a bag burster in the front end of the short line that gets the stuff out of the
And you only run one truck.
Yeah.
Everything goes in one truck.
I got to see it to understand more about what we
We are-
can do.
We're a long way from
Yeah, well, I think the more
implementing it.
information that we get and
Right.
have and learn and explore options, the better off we're gonna be, not that we're.
It's a good company. This company's from Pawleys Island, which makes it even a little more special. That he's a local guy, and I just don't want the Solid Waste Authority to ever be of saying, well, y'all wouldn't look at it. We brought you the answer to the test and y'all wouldn't look
Right.
at it. So I think we're a long, long way from having to make any kind of decision on this. But he's a very nice gentleman. The diversion committee learned a lot from him when we were up there before, and he contacts us again and has continued to pursue, and that's how you find the idea. You just keep digging.
Ms. Creech?
I thought it was very interesting. I also thought the machine that they showed was interesting, that the engineering behind it, each of the different colored bags went through different things and came out and came exactly in the area, which to me would cut out a lot of your employee. The machine that he had was really interesting. To me, we're doing the study on what we have in the landfill and how much of each one of those things we have in the landfill. And then we're going to decide what we can do with that economically and environmentally. So what he's doing, especially if they're willing to put forth the effort and the money, and we don't have to build buildings or do anything that to work with a pilot program, I think it would just be one more step to show us what they can do with the products that we're coming out with that issue. So I thought they had an excellent concept, and I'd like to see them do a pilot program.
They are very successful in the area that we were up in the northeast and all in that area. They've been quite successful with it, but as Mr. Jones says, they're required to recycle, but it's a good concept. They're willing to step in and help us and see what we got, and this will start.
Mr. Chairman, do you want the board, the committee's recommendation, is that good enough, or do you need a motion from the full board for
Yeah,
staff
why
to
don't you,
pursue that?
from the committee, go ahead
The
and
staff
make the
would,
motion? that-
Our recommendation to the full board is for staff to pursue this program with this company to see if it's feasible for the Solid Waste Authority.
Great, thank you. We got a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yes, I had
Sure.
a discussion that's somewhat directly related to Waste Zero's methodology, and also related to procedures of the board. I and other members of the board, I guess it was last week, were notified on Monday about 3 o'clock or so that there would be, it was said to be a reminder of the diversion committee meeting. And that was the very first notice that I had ever had of this proposal. Our bylaws and our customs and traditions and practices, whether it was to go look at the mulch operation in Charleston or the fuel pellets by one company or going down to Montgomery, is that we would discuss it at the table, what we were going to do and why. And that was not done in this case. Apparently, the chairman and the treasurer and the secretary of the board at the time, it would have been June or sometime in the spring, just decided on their own to do this and have the Solid Waste Authority pay all of the expenses of spending 4 days or whatever. And the company says that their card says they're based in Andover. I don't dispute that he may have a home in Pawleys Island, but I think that I think that it's important for us to stick to our customs and practices and bylaws, and that was not done in this case. That's water over the dam. Those participants may feel compelled or to reimburse the Solid Waste Authority for an unauthorized trip, but that's up to them. I wanted to get it on the record that was my understanding, that the board was kept entirely secretive, knew nothing about it, and we come back and get a report to spend money on something that works in Europe and the northeastern United States where they run out of landfill space. That's why the northeastern states want to ship waste south or elsewhere. And also, the most important thing is there are government mandates in Europe and in the northeastern states that require recycling. In fact, as a typical example, New York City has garbage police, for lack of a better name. They go around and inspect people's garbage to see if they are recycling. So I think that I'm in favor of turning rocks over, just like the other trips that we've done to try to keep stuff out of the landfill. I'm in favor of this. But as I understand it, Mr. Campbell read an article, and we went from there, and I just really feel uncomfortable about the way this was done. Mr. Chairman, it would be up to you to decide what measures you think should be taken given the facts and circumstances of what I just said. But if you look at their webpage, and you'll see that there's a real strong mismatch between the demographic of Europe and northeastern United States and here. There's no way in heck under the sun that we're going to get government to regulate. People got to put one kind of trash in one place and one in another. There'll be some who like to volunteer to do that, of course. And then we have 18,000 visitors every year. They're not concerned about that. Same thing with the people serving meals. So I have my concerns about the efficacy of any money spent on this. And my recommendation is that we spend no money on it. But if we do, that we monitor it very carefully.
Thank you, Mr. Gray. Mr. Knight, I think, can address that about the scheduling of the diversion committee.
This group contacted Liz Gillen 6 years ago. They've been working the area on bags for a long, long time. When I got here, they came out and visited with me and Mike, and we sat around and talked to them, concerned how it would work here rather than the Northeast. And my position was that show us a place that it worked and show us how it would work in Overy County. I met with the company a couple of times. I don't know what Mr. Campbell read, but staff put the trip together for the diversion group. We always pay our way. Somebody will say, well, we'll take you to show you something. We paid our way to Kansas. We paid our way to Montgomery. That's the way we do business here.
So you authorized the trip?
I set the trip up with the understanding from the chairman who went on the trip that the diversion committee would go, and they did go, and has brought back the information to the committee this past week.
I get that. I know I'm going nowhere with this, but I just think that the information that's being shared now about the history and so forth and so on could have been presented to the board in June or whenever the trip was. But again, if that's the way we're going to run the railroad, I'm just one person who put some sunshine out. That's all.
The sunshine's been out. It's authorized. We paid for it. It wasn't secret, and it won't be no secrets. and we'll continue to look at things that come. This is just one of the diversion opportunities we have looked, from Repower to Birmingham to dozens of them, from burning garbage to bagging garbage. So, I don't want anybody to be able to stand and say, we wouldn't pay anybody any attention that had a way to help us with garbage.
I think the board should set the policy rather than the executive director.
Mr. Jones?
I think
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There was a report made when the conversion committee came back from that trip. It was done the following board meeting. We brought everybody up to date. All I did was recognize the fact that we had dealt with this company before. There was no expense to this meeting this week. They said, we understand what y'all need better after the trip. We think we have a better idea and a better plan. That's all there was to it. There was no secrets. There was a committee report made then, just like there was a committee report made now. But I do take it very personal, and I do question the fact to say that this board or that I did something unauthorized implies that it was illegal, and I do not appreciate that. There was a committee report made both times. Everything that was done above board.
And I think the diversion committee exists specifically for exploring those things. I don't think anybody wants to spend money unnecessarily, but the committee has been challenged with the opportunity to look at things as they exist, and you know, it may turn out that we decide not to pursue anything, but we won't know until we at least explore it and look into it. Mr. Graves?
I'm fine, thank you, Chairman.
I'm sorry. Mr. Jones?
Yeah, when this thing started, the first one we went and looked at, they were literally burning stuff in a turning 55-gallon drum. And we watched it go from there to West Virginia, where they had spent several $1 million to build a gasification plant. And there's no other way that I know of to learn about these things and whether they're good or bad than to go look at them.
Well, I will ask my question.
Sure, yes, ma'am.
I was at the meeting, and obviously when you're not in the committee, you can't sit at the table and participate, and I had some questions too. But to the director, I think that there's some regulatory approval that would be needed that we're probably not going to get on a countywide basis. So if we were to implement this citywide with the city support, what percentage of the waste stream would be capturing at a maximum in the short or long term, given the situation as it is? What's the upside for this?
The upside is there's some small cities that are not doing curbside. Myrtle Beach has got a curbside. Conway's got curbside. The county has their collection center and 24 centers spread around the county. Now, it could very well work in the county system to separate things that we're already collecting there in different color bags. But we would have to have a way to separate them once they got to the MRF. Optical sorter can separate it, but it's $700,000-800,000. That's a lot different than the guy working the line making $8 an hour. It takes a lot of hours to make up that optical sorter. But different color bags, you can put different colored glass in separate color bags. We don't know how it would work till we saw it and how it may work here, which they are willing to come and share in some type program that, a pilot program.
Well, I don't oppose innovation, and I don't oppose new ideas. I think that that's the hallmark of moving forward. I'm just wondering how practical it is with us at this stage of our development and with this, you know, the ruralness of the county, and the diversity of our, cities. And that would be my only hesitation, to spending time on it. If there's somebody on staff that can accept information as times change and things change, so that their offers are more responsive to the situation, we should never close our eyes and ears to those things. But if we're pursuing something and actually using staff time for something that may not yield a benefit in the short term, I'm not sure about that.
We could not initiate the program ourselves. It would have to be the cities or the county, but we would have to be involved in it to be able to take the material and handle it once it left the truck.
So if there were a legislative will or a community will, then we would be the service provider that would be essentially their customer in sorting these things out, and I see that.
Yes, sir.
I know that gentleman, the builder, was willing to do whatever we wanted to do for $2.5 million, and that just seemed a little bit ambitious, given that, you know, the footwork.
Well, let me
wasn't
say
there.
this. That short line is not much different than we've sat at this table and heard other people present. Any type short line system that we put in will be bid. And like I said earlier, there's 4 or 5 companies that makes this worldwide. And we figure out what we know, what we need on this short line, and we put it out on the market, and then and we get prices. So it's not, if we like the bag man, that we're gonna spend $2 million next week putting in the equipment. There's other ways that we'll go about buying the equipment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Jones?
Yeah, first of all, I'd like to ask you, have you ever heard $2.5 million said any softer than he said that when I asked him that
I
question?
didn't hear you. I didn't hear what you just said to me.
I understand, but I don't think it was ever anybody on the diversion committees thought of any kind of a partnership here. The way that was brought to me was, we have an idea. Can y'all use the idea? I am in no way, shape, or form do I want us to get into the position of either subsidizing or promoting whatever he's doing. That's his business to run his way. And I wish him all the luck in the world. And I think if we can benefit from it, that's great.
I didn't get that impression. It was information gathering from me.
Right, I understand. But if you ever hear anything said softer than that, let me know.
I didn't
What-
hear it again.
What he means was when we asked how much it was, the man sitting in the back, instead of saying $2.5 million, he said $2.5 million.
Oh, I got you.
That's what he meant. But I will
You know,
tell
we can probably get 2 at twice the price.
That's right. I'll tell you what interests me about that is the fact that they're willing to do the pilot, and they're the one that's gonna cost, and it isn't us. And we're gonna get an awful lot of information for free. In the future, as we're experiencing now, the prices on recyclables has gone down. We don't know when it will go up. I would like to see every facet of this business make money. Some of the recycling does not, for certain reasons. But the information to me that we're going to be getting from our study and each thing and the percentage that we bring into the landfill, and if this man does this pilot, we wouldn't have to pay someone to tell us a certain amount of how it was handled. It would also give us an idea of how much was going into the county landfill. They need to make monies to do certain things just like we do. And if through that knowledge, we can find a few things that are the costliest to the county and to the Solid Waste Authority to process, and then we look at it and educate county council, the municipalities, to what it is really costing them, which I don't think most people realize, and how we can, which to me is our job, is to advise the municipalities and the county of what is happening in this whole industry. And we can come to those figures and explain it to them and give them the options of choosing just a few things that I think will cut their cost and our cost tremendously. To me, that's what these things are for, and that's what I'd like to find out, and some of it will be short-term. I just think it's very fortuitous that this happens at the same time we're doing our survey, because I think we can commingle it and let them pay for it and use that information to inform not only the public but our elected officials so that they know what their cost is. So that's just my...
Great, thank you. Mr. Gray?
They didn't say that they were gonna pay for the pilot program. The question was, I mean, that it'd be up to somebody else, us, I guess, or some municipality or county council to pay whatever it costs to put in a pilot program. The question was asked of them, would you help out? And they said, yeah, we'll, it was kind of hesitating, but he said, yeah, we'll do something, or we'll participate, but we don't know whether it's at 10%, but Ms. Creech, it certainly is not going to be free to gather this information. There's going to be some cost in a pilot program to be determined.
Yeah, and I don't think we know that, if there will be a cost, or if so, how much, or to whom. Mr. Campbell?
If they're not gonna participate, we're gonna reconsider. Real simple.
Well, I think it's an opportunity to gather information. At this point, the only decision to be made is the motion and second on the recommendation to authorize staff to explore further opportunities that might be available. So if there's no further discussion, we do have a motion and a second to authorize the staff just to explore that. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
No.
One no, motion carries. And we'll just allow staff to go and explore without any commitment on our part. If there's something that looks like it's in the best benefit of the Solid Waste Authority in our community, then that's certainly something staff will bring back to us and the board can vote on it.
That's right.
Okay, great. Thank you. Anything else from the Diversion Committee?
No, sir, that
Thank
concludes my report.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Finance Administration Committee, Ms. Creech.
Okay, I'm not going to go into Ms. Bidding's INR presentation. I think she's already done that. If anyone like to question that more, certainly may. I would like to say that I think her staff you've done an excellent job. INR was very pleased, and I think you had basically anticipated everything they needed, which is a good thing. So thank you for that, and thank you for keeping us abreast of that. Also, I'd like to say, even though we were going to have a meeting every month, that in April, because of the county's budgets and our budget retreat and this kind of thing, and they changed their INR committee meeting, that it's coming too close for us to have a finance committee before that time. But Ms. Bidding will have all of that together, and she will be there presenting it, and she will be emailing all of us that information so that if we have any input from her, for her, before that happens, it will be there. And if anyone has any questions, please do call her. I'm sure she'll be more than happy to help you with that. The other thing that we discussed, we do recycle carpet and the padding. We have been looking at, the carpet people would like, because they don't want a wet product, they would like for us to have a building over that. I think that had already been in our 16 capital budget. I'd also like to thank Esther Murphy. She's the one that writes the grants, and we have gotten an awful lot of grants every year. And we got a grant that will help us with this. That was for $8,000. We've been getting bids on the concrete pad. The lowest bid was $11,800. Mr. Hilling proposed to the committee that staff would like to utilize $5,000 from funds designated for the Green Sea property delineation to cover the remaining costs of this project. We talked about the lowest qualified bidder. We talked about whether we had done business with them before, and we have. It was confirmed that Affordable Concrete had done jobs for us in the past and done a very good job. There were some questions about the cost of the pad, if it was included in the project. Mr. Hilling responded that staff thought there would be enough funds to cover the project between the grant and the budgeted amount. However, the building will cost approximately $28.5 and can be expanded for future growth. I think it was a great thing that this building and what they're choosing to do can be expanded, because hopefully we may need to expand in the future and continue to recycle this, because it keeps an awful lot of landfill space by not putting carpet and padding. It's very bulky that goes in the landfill. So that was what we were discussing as far as the carpet and overhang shelter. Are there any questions from the board, or do any of our committee have any comments? Okay. It was moved to recommend to the board the staff's recommendation to utilize $5,000 from the Green Sea Property Delineation Project in order to complete the site preparation and concrete work needed for carpet recycling. So we are bringing this before the board with that motion.
Okay, there's a motion to accept staff's recommendation on moving the funds in order to complete the project. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, motion carries. Thank you.
The last thing that we discussed in the Finance Committee was lobbying. We were discussing the lobbying costs for the FY 2017 budget, and it was recommended that the matter be brought to Finance and Admin Committee for discussion. We did discuss that. We reviewed a worksheet that was completed in our committee package. She went over the impact lobbying costs had on the overall revenue that we have had over the years. She also indicated the Solid Waste Authority did make more revenue than was expensive spent on lobbying costs. She explained the staff had budgeted $50,000 for lobbying in FY 2015 and spent $24,800. Staff also budgeted $50,000 for FY 2016 and stated no expenses have been paid from that account so far this year. She checked different municipalities, different people that use lobbyists. We discussed why a lobbyist was necessary and why we thought that it might be, in different opinions. I had asked Mr. Knight to discuss with our committee the two bills that someone had informed me that had started at the first of the session. Mr. Knight discussed the container bill that basically said that only the state government could restrict container usage. In other words, if our county council next month or next year or 10 years from now decides that through cost or efficiency or what the public may want, that they would decide we weren't going to process certain containers in certain containers, that they would not be allowed to do this if that bill was continued and it went through. So the general discussion was that we were not aware of bills that concern our organization because we do not have a lobbyist in place this year. I have a lot of concern about bills coming up without our knowledge, or some of them tacking on things to bills without our knowledge, because if we don't stay on top of current movements and current affairs that would impact us and a law was passed, it would be a lot harder to try to get that law off of the books than it would be to work with it today. Or is there any comments or any questions from the rest of the board?
Yes,
Mr. Gray?
thank you. I differ with the figures that were presented by the committee. There are 12 copies right here if any of you want to look at them. But I had a forensic accountant to look from our own check register. And from 2010 through 2015, not including anything in 16, with just under $1.2 million paid to Beam and Associates. Now, I didn't pull those figures out of the air. They come directly from our check register. So I think that we need to rely on the best information possible. Additionally, I'd like to point out that the year, I think it was 2013, I don't have the, yeah, here it is. Well, there were several sheets that the sheet that says lobbying analysis, Association of Counties, that's $70,000. That's not what Horry County pays. You have to divide that by 46 counties or some proportional share. The part that Horry County Council pays is much smaller than that, just a fraction of that. I learned that as it relates to looking at the city of Myrtle Beach, Nelson Mullins and Riley, that was they have a Washington, D.C. office, and that was when the city had some federal issues, and that the city has not used them for the last 2 years. Under the Myrtle Beach Chamber of Commerce, it says Mark Kelly. That's not the Chamber of Commerce. The Chamber of Commerce is prohibited by law from having a lobbyist. In fact, Mark Kelly just won in appellate court, upheld an $800,000 lawsuit against the Sun News and the writer, David Brin, for saying the wrong thing. Forget what the legal term is. So I don't know that this lobbying analysis, as it is here, it provides much useful information about what we should be paying. As far as the effectiveness of the lobbying expenses that we show, or the ones that come out of our check register, in actuality, we spent a lot of money with the Beam Associates Group. You know, whether it's 800,000 or 1.2 million, that's a hunk of change. But they didn't get the big haulers turned back. The Association of Counties did. In 2013, they had a real sharp executive director and attorney, and they contacted 25 other counties who determined that their revenue stream or bonding capacity or debt service might be threatened by not having flow control. And they, of course, contacted their legislative delegations. At that point in time, the bill, I think it was called Freedom of Choice or something like that, the energy behind that bill that was carrying forward from previous years just died, and the measure went down. I'm not saying that Mr. Beam didn't do some stuff, but to attribute things to him. Are you saying that I shouldn't be talking, Mr. Knight?
Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. I'll end my discussion here. And then on lobbying, I don't know where the figures came from that showed that flow control had produced the results that we've been submitted, but we have a virtual monopoly on flow control where the bulk of the money comes from, and that's wet garbage. The nearest wet garbage landfill is 100 miles, and that's an uneconomical haul if you can bring it right here to Horry County for $29.50 a ton, which is the case. So I don't know why I've never seen Mr. Beam here. I've been here 4 years. He's never stood at the podium like a lot of our vendors do. I've never gotten a memo related to Mr. Beam. I think he's made a lot of money off of us, and I know that this $50,000 going forward. Let me just make one final point. I subscribe to the Charleston paper and the online edition, and the Columbia paper and the Greenville paper and the Florence paper. And you can go there anytime and just plug in solid waste or plug in recycling. And everything that we talk about here, that we say, oh man, we need to know about this because it's coming up to the legislature, like the matter up in Pickens County or what Charleston is going to do. It's right there. There's a history of it. I think with our own staff just checking like that, we can get a lot of the information that we don't need to pay a lobbyist for. So I know that the budget here is only $50,000, but I don't know whether I'll be a no vote on that. I agree that we need to have some eyes and ears watching the legislation. I'm glad that we're only budgeting $50,000. By the way, based on the check register, I don't have the number right in front of me, John. Could I see that? Just one, please. The record shows 74,000 spent in, the check register shows 74,000 spent in 2015, not 50,000, not less than 50,000. That's all my comment.
Thank you, Mr. Gray. Ms. Bidding?
Yes, sir. And Mr. Gray, you may be correct in what we paid Beeman Associates. However, we didn't pay them all that for lobbying. Understand, we also had them on contract for some consulting that they did for us as well. So by taking it off the check registers, you're just getting a total amount that we've paid them. We've done an analysis and broken it down before on what's consulting and what's lobbying, and we'd be more than happy to get that for you again. Like I said, we've got that. So like I said, that by taking off the check registers, you're not getting the true lobbying figure. And the $70,000 that you saw for the county, that was what was paid to John Napier. That didn't have anything to do with the Association of Counties. That came directly from Justin Powell at Horry County, that they've paid John Napier for $70,000 in lobbying. What I handed out to you there as well is I think at our meeting, we also had mentioned that for FY15, there was a cap on the contract that we could have with Beeman Associates for lobbying, and I just wanted to show you that in the minutes, of course, the cap was a $27,000 cap, and if you saw on my spreadsheet, we only spent $24,800, so we were well below that cap last year. We have not spent anything this year for lobbying, and what I've handed out to you as well is just maybe a recommendation to the board, where we could go with our cost for FY16, which you might approve Mr. Knight to enter into a contract with for the remainder of this year, and then what we might enter into for next year. So I just wanted to explain kind of what I handed out to you there as well.
May I speak to Jan?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Jan, and I've heard that oral report before. I didn't get anything in writing. What I would suggest, and I understand what you're saying, Beam does, you have to divide up his bill. Well, we're going to call this consulting, and we're going to call this lobbying. But in the reports that you give us, you might think about, well, the lobbying part speaks for itself. The consultation part was for : so-and-so. Just separate the two.
Mr. Jones?
That's all.
Yeah, my only question is, I would like for us to have some type of guidelines. If we're gonna do a lobbyist while they're in session, I think we need to make that decision probably 60 days before the session starts, not 30 days into the session. I'm not sure how we got here, but anyway, I would like to have some rule, some guideline, something that this will come up so we can make this before the session starts. If we're gonna do it, we need to be a part of the whole thing, because the bills, as you know, are pre-written and they're sitting there on go day one. They open the door and they're at work. And if we're gonna do this, I think we need somebody or whatever program we're gonna use, if it's a research person or whatever we're gonna use, there at that time. But it is good news to hear that we lived within our budget. We had 27, we spent 24. I certainly don't think that we need to be staff reading the newspaper trying to figure out what we're gonna do, or a board member hearing something about a bill that's coming up, bringing it to this board. That's not very professional. And having someone here doing research and having someone in Columbia that deals and works with that every day are two different things to me.
Was there a conscious decision made for this year not to spend the budgeted monies? I mean, that money was budgeted, so was there a conscious decision made because of the economic climate, or did we feel like at that point? Yeah, and I tend to agree that, you know, we can be penny wise and pound foolish and really get behind if we're not careful. And I think that the proposal that Ms. Bidding has put forth would probably address exactly what the points you're making, Mr. Jones. So, Mr. Long, did you have a question or comment?
Would lobbying-related expenses, would that be the correct terminology for what we want accomplished? Because right now, we're looking for somebody to monitor bills that an issue may come up, right?
Yeah, and I don't, whether you can call it lobbying related expense, whether you want to, but the lady that has been reading the bills works for a lobbyist. So, I mean, you're not gonna get her.
I think lobbying kind of connotes a negative feel when it's not. We're not really paying for lobbying. Nobody's, to my knowledge, with the money that we're looking to spend, nobody is speaking on behalf of Solid.
Right, nobody is lobbying. I understand what you're saying.
I think it.
I also don't want to get caught in a trap paying a lobbyist to do research for us and not calling him a lobbyist.
True, okay. Yeah,
So, you know, I'd much rather go the other way and say, yes, we're paying a firm to do research and make us aware of what's going on in Columbia. Now, you can call it a firm, or you can call him a lobbyist, or call his firm a lobbyist firm. That's all semantics. It's all a play on words. But what I really don't want to do is get caught calling it something else like we're trying to hide something, because we're not. We haven't, and we're not.
Mr. Graves?
I would, if anybody wants to know my position on this, I refer you to my comments at the committee meeting, and it was an offense-defense posture where we're not really trying to promote anything. And that would be lobbying is trying to get the legislators to do something in your favor. I think that any yes vote I give on this is to make sure that there's not anything hidden in the bill or being done at the legislative level at a statewide situation that we find out about after the cook's, already serving the meal. And so I'm for making these expenses just to monitor and ensure that our interests are protected to the extent that we're not unaware of any bad things coming down the pike.
That was a lot of the way I feel about it. And when someone that we're paying has someone that is reading each and every bill and every addition to it, and going through flow control, I think I wasn't here then, but I think all of you know what happened on those levels and how detrimental that would have been to what we did. in some of my more boring weeks, I would take, I think one of the governors had 257 vetoes of things that happened in Columbia. I read all of them. You would have had, if someone was paying me, you would have had to pay me more than you paying that lobbyist to do that. And there are way more than 250 bills in addition that are up there. So what we're getting, if you look at it from that standpoint, is very inexpensive. And call it self-defense. This container bill, I think, would be very detrimental to any public solid waste authority in what we would choose to do and how we would choose to do it based on economics in serving municipalities, the county, and the people in this county. So the information that we would get just from that, so that we would know how to react, and if we wanted to go up there and talk with them, or someone that would be experienced, that knows the people that could immediately do that, I think this is very inexpensive for what we're getting.
Mr. Chairman, I think that we need to know what's going on, no doubt about that. We need to know what's coming up and how much we need to be involved in it. And as Ms. Creech said, I think it's real inexpensive when you got people of their caliber up there. They know where to go to find out the information, and I'm in favor of it.
Does the committee have a motion?
Mr. Briggs recommended to the board the committee's recommendation to budget $50,000 in FY17 budget for lobbying-related expenses and authorize the executive director to execute contract for professional services for FY16 in an amount to be determined by this board. So that's what we have brought to you, is that motion. And then the lobbying that has been presented by Ms. Bidding and Mr. Knight. It's a recommended contract for the 4 months, $4,000 a month. The budget's $50,000. The recommended contract would be $16,000. Then for 2017, the budget would be $50,000. Recommended contract for 6 months in session would be $24,000, and if we needed the 6 months not in session, it would be $6,000. So that would be a total of $30,000 for 17, a total of $16,000 for 2016, and that would be the cap. So that,
you said.
so that would be my recommendation to the board.
So that's a motion to accept Ms. Bidding and staff's recommendation on the expenditures of the recommended funds out of this year's already approved budget, and then the budget going forward in 2017.
And I think we would need that recommendation voted on, because when I sat down with the guy, then I want to make sure he understands next year's covered. So we'll catch up this year, and I'll take the heat for not doing it while we're looking at money and trying our best to save every place we could. But when these other two bills popped up, DHEC looking at what they're looking at, then I think we're probably on the right course.
That's true. I forgot that. DHEC is looking at changing a lot of their laws in regards to solid waste.
And other things.
And other things. And you would think we would get a year where we didn't have this much to discuss, but unfortunately, that's not going to be this year.
So we have a motion on the table to accept the recommendation of staff with FY16 and 17 on the budgeted amounts and expenditures.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. Do you think it would be, just for texture, do you think it would be better to have two separate votes on this, so that if somebody's opposed to the 17 stuff, that the 16 doesn't get
Good
cast
point.
in with that? Or
Good point.
I'm,
Yeah. You'd like to amend your motion to the 16
I'd like to
expenditures?
amend my motion to accepting staff's recommendation for 2016.
We have a motion on accepting staff's recommendation for the
Second that.
$16,000. Is that a second, Mr. Graves?
yes, sir.
Motion and a second. Further discussion?
Yes.
Mr. Gray?
I do appreciate the fact that we're going way, way down on something classified as lobbying expenses. But John, in response to a question you had, the city of Myrtle Beach pays a lady named Pam Bennett and she doesn't lobby. All she does is monitor stuff that comes up that might affect the well-being of the city of Myrtle Beach. In fact, she was recommended by a former chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee. I think you understand the importance of that. Brent Branham was just put on this year, and he does do lobbying on things that the city thinks is important to buttonhole legislators. So perhaps at a later time, not tonight, but perhaps at a later time, there can be a divisioning such as that, so we'll have a better idea of what are we voting on? Somebody to read the bills or somebody to go buttonhole legislators? Might be a little bit, it would, in terms of the different figures that are in the check register versus what we report here internally, it would straighten that out and forever. But that's just a recommendation. It prompted, John's concerns prompted me to mention that.
Thank you, Mr. Gray. Any further discussion? Mr. Knight?
I'd like to make a couple of points that Mr. Gray's made. The final straw that kept flow control from being defeated at the Capitol is when the Association of Counties stepped in. But the 4 years up to that, there wasn't nobody in the fight but us. We were paying the ticket. And now, and for our delegation to say, this is just an Horry County deal, it's not a statewide deal. And once they opened their eyes and found out it was statewide, Three Rivers, everybody almost had flow control, either real flow control or the way they collected. So I think we did save the flow control. And I've heard that argument before. They won't nobody drive past here taking C&D out of the county, and damn, the truckloads going every day out of the county. And we have been over this lobbying Beams bill so many times, and with the same argument. We paid Beam for 2 or 3 different projects that he was on, and all of it wasn't lobbying. And the lobbying is specific on what he can charge as lobbying for what you may not agree with it on a statewide basis, but that's the only thing we got to go by. And we have reported that at this table numerous times. It was stated at the last meeting, we surpassed the budget amount, or the lobbying budget, and we did not. We watched it, and I think with motion to pay out this year for the lobbying, and a motion to structure next year based on this amount, I think we can move on and get something signed.
Thank you, Mr. Knight. Any further discussion? We've got the motion second on the table. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Thank you. 1 no, motion carries. Now we can address the FY17 budget.
I'd like to make a motion to accept staff's recommendation on 2017 for the budget of $50,000, and then for the cap to be $30,000.
Okay, we have a motion on FY 17's budget and expenditures under the contract structured the way that it was presented by staff.
Second.
We have a motion second, further discussion. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
No.
One no, motion carries. We'll go forward with the approval of the 17 expenditures as structured, as we said.
We'll
Great,
get on that tomorrow.
great, thank you. Ms. Creech, anything else from the committee report, Finance Administration?
No, I don't think there was. Did any of the committee members have any comments or anything to share?
Thank you, Chairman, no.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Any old business for the group?
Have we got the roundtable?
Getting to it right now.
Okay,
New business under roundtable, Mr. Gray.
thank you. I know we don't make motions and seconds and take votes under a roundtable, but I hope that in the future, I don't care whether it's this committee or that committee, that we always continue the practice of discussing what the committee is proposing to do and who's paying the tab and so there are no questions. I was really flummoxed. I think that's the word. When some of us got the call on a Monday afternoon to learn the next day for the very first time anything at all about, at least recently, Waste Zero.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Gray. Yeah, Mr. Graves?
I don't know who was in charge of the rain dance or the dry dance, but they've closed the schools for tomorrow based on foul weather predictions. So if you've got a child in school,
I just saw that myself.
then you've been notified by the county.
That's interesting, yeah.
So we need a new rain dancer.
No kidding. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Gray. Ms. Creech?
I'd just like to thank Ms. Murphy. I had another group of 15 to 18 people that would like to come April the 4th to do a tour here. And I talked with her, and she talked with them, and has got all that set up. So I just appreciate her taking care of that quickly, because I love to see people come and look at what we do.
As do I. Thank you very much. Anything else for the good of the group?
One last thing, I wanted to
Graves?
express my appreciation to the folks from Solid Waste Authority that went out on the 13th to the first Lego competition. I wasn't able to make it, but it's definitely a waste theme this year. I think we fit right in with that. There's some costumes that Esther was telling me about, if I can take her story, but one of the girls had some trash on her head that was designed to raise awareness, and that's what we do. There's another competition for Oury County Schools scheduled for April, and I hope we're visible there as well.
Outstanding. Thank you. Anything else from the group? Not, the chair will entertain a motion for adjournment.
Second.
Yeah, we're adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody.